Hello, this is Autie Talk, I'm Louise. Today I'm going to be talking about Greta Thunberg, someone who, about a year ago, you probably never heard of. She was protesting outside her parliament in Sweden about climate change, and this week has appeared at the UN to talk about that in front of world leaders. She's been on the front of magazines and suddenly she is known everywhere, so it's a name you probably know now. She's 16 years old and has been quite open and honest about having Aspergers syndrome. She has had a lot of praise for what she's done. She's become quite a good role model. And then there's been a lot of hatred and a lot of difficulties online. I will give you an example of a tweet that she's just sent out to prove my point. On this video, I will be talking about her condition and the way it is being received by the world and why that is a problem. I set up Autie Talk a few years ago to talk about autism. I'm autistic, my children are autistic, and I wanted to talk to people who have autism and what their experience of it is in order to get people's understanding up and the public in general to get more ideas about it. People have heard the word, they don't necessarily know much about it, and that's really important, and particularly important when you look at Greta and some of the ways that she's being treated, which are not appropriate, I don't think, for someone on the autistic spectrum. Let me share a tweet with you to give you an example. This is one that she's just sent. The haters are as active as ever, going after me, my looks, my clothes, my behaviour and my differences. Hashtag #AspyPower. I'm going to talk briefly about autism. I'm also going to talk about mental health conditions because she has been accused of being a mentally unstable young girl in order to discredit what she has to say. I'm going to talk about why that's a problem. And I'm also going to talk about autism as a superpower. Autism is not a mental health condition, just to make that clear, and therefore shouldn't be treated as such. It is a neurological condition that you have, that you're born with. You're either autistic or you aren't. Having said that, people with autism can often have mental health conditions. I personally have mental health conditions such as anxiety and depression, which I attribute directly to my autism. I feel anxious because of sensory difficulties and difficulties communicating, and I feel depressed when I don't live up to my own expectations. That's how I feel. There are millions of people without autism who have things like anxiety, depression, OCD, bipolar, and at no point does a lot of these conditions ever affect your judgment. So to go around calling people mentally ill and therefore discrediting of what they say is a problem. Not because of what they say, but because if you have a mental health condition, how are you going to ever speak out or even be honest that you have a mental health condition if people would automatically discredit you at that point? It takes us back to the days where people didn't talk about mental health, where it's shameful and embarrassing and makes people not want to talk about it. So that's first of all, the first thing to say. Autism is not a mental health condition, but we shouldn't be rude to people who have it, either autistic or not, simply because we want to discredit people about it. It's not good language at all. The next thing is whether autism is a superpower. Greta has every right in the world to think that her autism, her Aspergers, is a superpower. And I'm proud of her in a way, because I feel as if she was my own child or my own children following in her footsteps as someone, a 16-year-old who knows what she wants and is going out to do what she needs to do. I feel as if I'd like to have a role model for my children where they can feel that who they are, their autism would never stand in their way, and they could be proud. Everyone has a right to be proud. I feel proud at times. I know autistic people who are proud, and there are some good things about autism. At the same time, I can understand why people find the idea of autism being a superpower problematic. We have an old-fashioned view sometimes that it's all about being a savant or someone who can count cards or do maths really well, and that's what autism is. Often it's not like that at all. People really suffer. They may live what appear to be regular lives but feel regularly suicidal and struggle with the smallest thing. There may be people that need lifelong support. It's very hard to see an incredibly disabled person, an incredibly disabled child, and say what they have is a superpower. But if you spoke to their mums and their carers, I'm sure that they would say, nearly all of the time, in the times that I've spoken to people, that people that they work with are warm, caring, loving, bright, insightful, have all these great attributes. They're funny. And so I can understand why people think it's a superpower. There are some great things about it which Greta is benefiting from. Lots of people that I spoke to on Autie Talk have a very clear idea of right and wrong. They want things to be fair. Steve, who I spoke to on the podcast, has told me that he doesn't like his wife buying too many clothes because of how bad it is for the environment, and that frustrates him. At the same time, he realises that he doesn't want to upset his wife by pointing that out and how difficult that is. There's something about autism that cuts you right to the facts, that sends you directly to the source of the thing. I've always seen Greta as, the child in the Emperor's New Clothing story who points out the facts, which is the man's wearing no clothes. There is something pure about the person that can state things as they see them, regardless of whether you agree or don't agree with that. I think a lot of scientists, well, all the scientists agree with Greta. It's not really about what she's saying, it's about how she's treated as an autistic person. So here we have this world where Greta is being teased and ridiculed for who she is, and a lot of that is because she's autistic. Her choices of clothes, the way she behaves, she's often described as having a monotone voice. I don't hear that, I just feel like she's Swedish and that's what she sounds like. There is a lot of vitriol about that, and I think this is dangerous territory. Autistic people know what it's like to be bullied, to be ridiculed for being different. Surely we can be more grown up and realise that some people are different. They choose to dress differently, they look differently. If you want to argue with people about what they have to say, that is your entitlement. But to go after people for how they look. A lot of things are said about Greta. She's 16, why would you do that if she's 16? People were mean to Susan Boyle, who also has Asperger's. She's a lot older than that. Still, it's just not appropriate. People dress differently, get over it. It's the sort of marginalising that we've seen in history in other groups, like the LGBTQ community. We need to get over this. We're big and grown up enough to not be rude about someone's condition. And I think we've got a tremendous way to go with this. Greta, I hope that this haters, as you describe them, are not upsetting you to a point that causes you mental health conditions or that's causing you any worry or problems. And I hope for people that are autistic that they certainly do not deserve to be treated in the way that Greta sometimes is. Thank you.